Everything looked normal that morning. It wasn't. Jonah had been staring at the same wall since 5:14 a.m., and the only creature in the house who understood why was the one they had already decided to give away. Priya Kapadia was a hospital pharmacist, 12 years at Mercy General, most of it night shift. She had trained her mind to notice small deviations, a decimal in the wrong place, a color change in an IV bag, a patient's voice half a step lower than yesterday. She noticed things. She was proud of that. Her son, Arav, was 8 months old. Round cheeks, a permanent surprised expression, a striped bib he refused to take off even to sleep. Her husband, Kieran, had inherited Jonah, their 6-year-old Rottweiler, from his brother 2 years before Arav was born. Jonah had never given them a moment of concern. He weighed 112 pounds and moved through the house like an old professor. Thoughtful, quiet, careful with his weight around the corners of the coffee table. Then Arav was born, and the neighbors started making comments. Priya's mother-in-law said it first. "That is a lot of dog for a small baby." A neighbor said it on the sidewalk in September. "You're brave." The pediatrician did not say it exactly, but raised her eyebrows over her chart in a way that Priya, 12 years reading physicians, recognized. Priya laughed all of them off. At first, Jonah had done nothing but lie 6 feet from the bassinet since the day they brought Arav home. Then the Tuesday morning came when he wouldn't move. She woke at 5:14 to Arav's soft morning sounds. Not crying, the gentle vowel noises of a baby who had woken up curious. She came into the kitchen to make bottles and found Jonah sitting on the kitchen tile, upright, facing the wall behind the refrigerator. He did not turn when she said his name. He did not look up when she opened the fridge. He was staring at a spot approximately 3 feet up the wall, as if there was something on it only he could see. She said his name again. He did not turn. She reached down and touched the top of his head. He did not react. His entire body was oriented, nose, ears, spine, toward that wall. Kieran came down at 7. Jonah was still there. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't asked to go out. He was in the exact same position, breathing slow, staring. At 8:30, Priya put Arav on the playmat in the living room. Jonah stood up for the first time in 3 hours, walked across the room, and lay down between the baby and the kitchen doorway, facing the kitchen, facing the wall. By 10 a.m., Kieran had said the word she had not wanted to say. Something is wrong with him. By 11 o'clock, they had called Kieran's brother. By noon, they had discussed in the low voices adults use when they are about to make a decision they will not undo, whether Jonah could go stay with the brother's family for a few weeks. Just until we understand what's happening, just to be safe, just because he's 112 pounds and Arav is on the floor. Priya kept looking at the dog. Jonah kept looking at the wall. It was the smallest thing that stopped her, the way his nostrils flared slightly on every inhale. Not a dog resting, a dog reading. She had watched a patient once in the ICU who had turned his head repeatedly toward an IV line before the pump alarm had gone off. She had learned in her career that when a body notices something the instruments haven't caught yet, the correct response is not to override the body. The correct response is to look where the body is looking. She walked into the kitchen. She stood in front of the wall Jonah had been staring at. She smelled nothing. She listened. She put her hand flat against the drywall. It felt normal. She got down on her knees and pressed her ear against the outlet plate at the base of the wall. She thought she heard something, a hiss so faint she could not have sworn to it in court. She wasn't sure, but Jonah had been sure for nearly 6 hours. She called the gas company. She was almost apologetic on the phone, framing it as a check, hedging her language the way pharmacists learn to hedge language. The dispatcher didn't hedge. "Ma'am, get your family out of the house. Now, we'll be there in 11 minutes. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. They stood in the driveway with Arav wrapped in a fleece blanket and Jonah on a leash that Kieran gripped so hard his knuckles were white. The utility technician who came out, a man named Marcus Whitfield, 22 years on the job, took a reading behind the refrigerator and did not say anything for a long moment. Then he said, very quietly, "How long has your dog been sitting in front of this wall?" "Since about 5 this morning." Marcus looked at his meter. Then he looked at Jonah. "The natural gas line running behind this wall has a hairline fracture at the junction. It's been venting slowly into the wall cavity. The reading in that pocket right now is 38% of the lower explosive limit. Another few hours of accumulation and one spark from your fridge compressor cycling would have taken the kitchen wall off." He looked at Kieran. "You want to tell me what tipped you off?" Kieran couldn't speak. Priya answered, "Our dog." Marcus nodded once, slow the way people do when they've heard the same answer before and have stopped being surprised by it. Dogs pick up natural gas at concentrations we can't even instrument for below a certain threshold. The mercaptan they add to gas is an odorant. A dog registers that at parts per billion. Yours has been sitting on your emergency alert system all morning. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The repair took most of the afternoon. When they walked back into the house at 4 p.m., Jonah walked directly to the spot where he had been sitting all morning, sniffed the wall once, and then, for the first time since 5:14 a.m., he turned his back on it. He crossed the living room, lay down beside Arav's playmat, and put his enormous head down on his paws. Priya sat on the floor beside him. She had already texted Kieran's brother. She had already deleted the message she had drafted about temporary rehoming. She looked at Jonah's face, the one they had almost sent away for the crime of paying too much attention, and she put her hand very carefully on the flat plane between his ears. "I'm sorry," she said. "I almost got that very wrong." Jonah closed his eyes. Arav laughed at something on the ceiling. The refrigerator, safely repaired, cycled on and off in the kitchen behind them, ordinary and harmless again. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. The next one involves a dog who wouldn't stop bringing the same toy to a high chair for 9 days, and the reason nobody understood until it was almost too late.